We went to the Under-17 World Cup in Mexico and we tied England. Our goalie, Cpl Month, scored a famous goal and lobbed it over Jordan Pickford on a slippy surface, and we come away with a 2-2 draw, funnily enough.
Oh, it's bounced all the way and then it's in! It's an equaliser and it's a goal for the goalkeeper! England, Canada stand on the bus, only playing because of an injury to Maxime Crépeau, has scored. No one touched it. Pickford misjudged it. It's 2-2.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TFF Plus One with Rob Gale, the head coach of Valour FC in the Canadian Premier League, the first Canadian Premier League coach. And we're going to start in Winnipeg. Rob, how's it going?
Good, thank you. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Not bad.
Doing well.
Sun's out.
So as it stands,
out.
we're filming this in early spring. However, when you'll be listening to it could be early spring 2030 by the time this coronavirus situation, obviously in Canada. So, but however, the narrative of this episode will be not about this upcoming season. However, the life of Rob Gale, obviously, not just with Valour, but all the way back. And this is a crazy fact. The first guest we have, born in Zambia. Is that correct? Or is that Wikipedia playing games?
I don't know who your other guests were, but yeah, it's correct that I was born in Zambia.
Yeah,
Wow. That's funny. I didn't know that. We've got listeners because it's so random. So we get listeners from all over. Like last couple of days, we've just blown up in Malaysia. Don't know why. Don't know if I told you that, guys. By the way, we've had 27 streams from Malaysia in the last couple of days.
So that's us blowing up. Is 27 views, which is
that's a very good point for audio streams. That's on YouTube. We're doing quite well, but audio we're still working with baby numbers. So that's us blowing up. We've had streams from Zambia though, like just one random African country. So maybe getting Rob on's gonna let us blow up in Zambia.
Come on. Did you know Robert Earnshaw was actually born in Zambia too? And he's been in the Canadian game. We were in the same room having a chat at one of our national team showcases, and Rob was with Vancouver Whitecaps. And the lads did a quiz question, and they said, who was born in Zambia? And both Rob and I were born in Zambia, so there you go.
Jesus.
That's crazy.
Is there a connection to the name Rob and being born in Zambia? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, he went on to play for Wales, and I've come over to Canada, so it's a funny old game, as they say.
For sure.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Zambia did you grow up? Because my dad wasn't born over there, but he grew up there from like his name's Rob as well. So
Way.
dead serious as well.
We have to address this more because I'm wondering what's this connection between England and Zambia? Is it? I don't know.
Oh, back in the day when my folks were still having babies, my dad took a coaching job. He was actually out in New Zealand originally, and then he came home because Fulham was his team that he supported, and they got to the FA Cup final, so he came all the way home because he knew it wouldn't happen again in his lifetime. And then after being... Yeah, classic. And then after he was back in England for a while, he got offered a job in Zambia teaching and coaching. So I think because it was the old Commonwealth back then and they were looking for people to come in and teach and work. So that was how I ended up being born in Mongu Dan, a little town called Mongu, Zambia. Okay. And then spent some time in Zambia, right at the base of Mount Kilimanjaro in Moshi. So yeah, I was like Mowgli from the Jungle Book for about the first 5 years. I was just bopping about, me and Arkayla, and singing bears and all those kind of things. And spent most of my life in England. But
Dan, how well do you know Zambia? Because do you just know the place your dad grew up, or you know Zambia pretty well?
Well, not well, but fairly well. I know the rough area because my dad's sister still lives out there now, so I technically do have family out there right now.
Oh, no way.
Maybe
yeah.
Hey, maybe
so
that was the listener. Was that not the listener then? Your aunt.
I don't know.
That's actually a big.
Of course.
I'm not close.
Anyone.
Well, no, I'm not close to them really. So I don't know because I haven't shared it on Facebook or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe I have. I don't know. Maybe.
Who's got 27 Malaysian cousins? I think you're just building your fan base. I just think you're building your fan base, guys. Don't worry about it.
My money's on Alex, I think.
So from
God.
Zambia to England. Obviously they moved, but that's not much of a question. But that's obviously what you remember from your childhood. Talk about growing up in England, falling in love with football. You're an Arsenal fan. I'm guessing is your second team Fulham, or did you just say, I'm not a Fulham fan?
With my dad being a Fulham fan, we actually
His dad's. Oh,
yeah. So grew up just outside of London, right by Gatwick Airport, little town called Hawley. Giving the Hawley lads a shout out there. And yeah, like me, three older sisters, older brother, four of us at the five played football. My sister actually played in the Women's FA Cup final for what was the Friends of Fulham team, funnily enough, another Fulham connection, and was very talented, had opportunities with both England and Wales through an aunt to play internationally. My youngest sister was a really talented player, played at Brighton, and again went all the way up right into the England ranks, but didn't like the culture at the time of football in the country and never pursued it. My brother was a talented player, and then my dad was a coach. My sister started working for the Football Association. She married John Peacock, who's won 2 European Championships and a World Cup with the England youth teams. So it's in the family, and then brother, sister all got coaching licenses. My niece has a coaching license. Dad still coaches. So football was in the veins, as it is a lot of youngsters in England, obviously, as you lads know. And at age 14, I signed for Fulham Football Club as an associate schoolboy, funnily enough. So my dad was probably one of his proudest days I was still an Arsenal fan and would make the mistake of wearing my Arsenal gear sometimes to Fulham, which the bosses didn't appreciate. But just a football family, really. And that's as long as I can remember. I haven't had a real job, so I can't complain.
That's if you're working football, it's a lot. So let's talk, before we go into coaching, you're playing some of your playing days. Obviously, you came to Canada to play in Winnipeg, so you kind of had that connection to Manitoba, which is interesting. I've never actually been there, and I'm not sure if Alex has been there. But Canada's a massive country. It's not like in England where you just you're complaining about a 2-hour drive up to Leeds. For us, a 2-hour drive is nothing. So talk about a little bit of that playing day.
It's 3, mate.
It is what it is.
Yeah, so playing, great fun. I mean, I say I was always had older brothers and sisters to make me a half decent footballer and competing against them, and they were my role models and still probably are really in my football pathway. So, young lad, you get signed by a professional club. You think you're going to make it. You think life's easy, everything's going well. Played there. I was lucky playing from a county, playing from a school, was captain of the teams, right? And you just go through the systems. When a former coach at Fulham, Alan Smith, was an assistant coach, was the head coach at Wycombe Wanderers. I had an opportunity to go over to Wycombe, and because my dad's a teacher, family, quite big into education, I was still studying at the time and always had that side to fall back on. So I actually went to the University of what was called University of Luton, Bedfordshire. There it was Lou Cole, and now I think it's called the University of Bedfordshire. It's had a few reincarnations. So we had a terrific team there, actually, a lot of ex-professionals, and I think sometimes it was better than some of the professional teams I played for, to be honest. We played in the national championships a few years in a row, which was great fun, being able to do both. And that led to an opportunity to come out to North America. We got offered, 3 or 4 of us in that sort of team, got offered an opportunity to come and experience college if we wanted to, and we ended up not doing it and coming out to coach in the summer in Omaha, Nebraska, funnily enough, which was a great city, very similar to Winnipeg, good people, not that big, and that led to meeting different people. Met an Arsenal fan there, Alex Mason, who I'm still very good friends with to this day. Started building academy programs in the coaching side of it, really started to take an interest, and I went back to Fulham and started coaching and sort of pitched it to Lee Hoos, who was the executive director at the time. and said, look, it's massively underserviced market. We're going in and doing these camps and everything in the summer, but they need year-round development. This was early 2000s. The game was exploding since MLS was really starting to establish itself. So, yeah, that's how I come to North America. And then I got asked to come up to Winnipeg. Similar to you, Jay, I was, where's that? I had to check it out on the map and look it up. Winnipeg. What is that? It sounded like a dodgy raffle. And I ended up traveling 12 hours north up to Winnipeg. Which is where I walked into a Winnipeg youth soccer office and was here to do some camps and scout some players. And lo and behold, what was to become my wife ended up taking a summer job with Winnipeg youth soccer that summer. So we got to know each other, explore the city, and started doing a whole long distance relationship thing. I had the opportunity to play. I had the whole opportunity to play for the number one team in Winnipeg at the time. They won the national championships that year. And this was before the MLS clubs and everything. So really, one of the best clubs in the country and teams. So I ended up coaching in the States for the next 3 years and coming up in the summers to play football in Canada.
Well, funny enough, I've actually been to Omaha, Nebraska, and not a place that everyone goes to.
When did you go there, yo?
It's a long story. We won't get into that. That's for sure. It's. I don't think anyone's interested.
We're all interconnected. Look, Zambia.
Omaha, Nebraska, I tell you, is actually a pretty nice place. Pretty nice city from my I was there about 5 years ago, but it is a pretty nice place. So if you're telling me that you like Omaha, I might have to go and check out your Winnipeg, because I think I've heard good things about Winnipeg as well.
Great people in Winnipeg. It's friendly Manitoba on the number plate. And you can see your dog run away for 2 days. It's so flat and there's no towns for 24 hours in each direction. So
that's
No, Winnipeg's like, it's starting to build up. It's so nice, like going to the Forks and down by the water and going to the Human Rights Museum. Yeah, I've been.
Yeah, it's beautiful there.
Yeah. It's underrated.
So you say you come from a family, obviously, of all, that are all immersed with football or soccer. At what point did you start doing the coaching licenses? When does that come in where you're like, you know what, I'm doing all these camps, I'm enjoying it, I like this side of the game. When did you say, okay, I want to make this my full-time job? And I'm guessing that you did the badges with the English FA, is that correct?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of all sorts over the years. So, yeah, funnily enough, when I started, I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. I was still, you want to play, and that's the best part of the game. And the summer camps or those kind of community things you do when you're a player for the club, they're a bit of a giggle, chance for the lads to get out in the community, meet people, an hour. But I've got to say, the people obviously I'm involved with and the clubs I've been involved with and role models over the years sort of said, you should do your licenses, similar to getting education on the college side. I thought, well, okay, I'll get me badges and we'll see how that looks. So I did my UEFA, what would have been the C license equivalent, the UEFA B. Came over to North America, and that's when it started to establish itself as a job. And really then I was still, I'm enjoying it, but the playing side was still taking precedence. And then with the Canadian team doing so well, national championships, it reinvigorates you, and you got a new lease of life. And I've gone from being a right winger to a sweeper to now a central midfielder in North America as the game's a bit different and the levels changed and, loving it really. So then did my USSF licenses when I was in the States. And then as I started to come up to Canada more regularly, my wife was a social worker. So she sort of said to me, what a good impact you're having on kids. And do you realize what sort of role you can play in their lives sometimes? And I hadn't really thought of that side of it and the impact of adults and discipline and what team sports brings you. I'm just a young English guy with a cheeky accent who thinks he can get away with most things in North America. It is, Morgan. So the thing was we started to take it a little bit more seriously, went through Canadian badges, got up, done the A license there, since then, gone back, done the UEFA licenses, again, done the UEFA A license, did the pro side of that with some great people on the course like Phil Neville and Peter Schmeichel, and Giggs had just gone through the previous cycle, Nicky Butt, and that's a great thing at St George's Park right now. You've got people doing the A license, a pro license, part 1, part 2. It's just that great environment of learning. So I've continued that coach education really all the way from those early days when I just thought I'd do it to now, being a passion and turning it into a full-time coaching career.
I think it's amazing that you're able to see all three areas because I think while a lot of the you could say the content that you're covering and all that is very similar, there's all those best practices being shared, but it's about the people I think you meet on these courses. When you go to obviously the United States, you probably developed a pretty good network through the USSF courses, and nowadays they also have the United Soccer Coaches courses, that kind of the two areas that they have, and then obviously Canada coach education is improving quite a lot, I would say, obviously, when you compare it to the UEFA license as well. So I think that experience you'll definitely say that has helped you on and continue on to do these licenses even after, obviously, coaching and having roles in Canada, correct?
Yeah, no, spot on, mate. And they say like in any walk of life or a job you're in, knowledge changes every 7 years, right? And I think you've got to keep up with that. The game is changing faster, better, more transitions. Look at the evolution of tactics over the Premier League era, really. From going, and Wenger came in and revolutionised it, and then now you've got, and obviously Ferguson was the sort of benchmark, and then you've got Guardiola, and now you've got the German coaches and Klopp leading that charge, and the Gegenpress. So it's fascinating to keep your finger on the pulse, and obviously I've been very fortunate that that's been my life from a young age. So
at the ripe age, the spring age of 29, I believe you got a role of director of Manitoba soccer. How was that? Obviously, because that is still relatively young, you could say, to be a director of a provincial governing body of soccer. What were the challenges involved there? I guess that what you could call it your proper a kind of big break into the soccer, full-time soccer.
Yeah, you're right. That was when, instead of doing a travelling road show with the Fulham badge and our School UK academies at the time, I needed to settle down and have a base. Just had my first child, my daughter Hayden, so it was time to stop racking up the air miles and be a dad. Manitoba Soccer had asked me for about a year to take the position. It had become available, and there's always that the provincial teams and the politics and dealing with all the things that come with working for an association. And to put it in perspective, this is where it's a beauty, Canada compared to England. Manitoba is bigger than the British Isles. It is, and it's one of the small. It's the 7th largest province, so it's not huge compared to here. But the great advantage of it is 90% of the population is in and around Winnipeg and the one major hub, whereas a lot of other provinces had 2 cities. So I thought I'd have a genuinely good chance to work on 2 things: player development and coach development, and really strive to put Manitoba on the map. Because the running joke was, when I went to meetings, is like, oh yeah, when was the last time you put a player on the national team? And it was like 20 years before on the male side, with actually the guy who I was playing and coaching with in the local league. So it was an opportunity to go in. Like you say, young guy. I was the youngest technical director across the country at the time. There was a few long in the tooth and had been in the jobs more years than I'd been on the earth. But if you have a vision and you have a clear idea and you can articulate that, which is part of being a coach and a leader, and communication is the key, right? So I felt like I tried to surround myself with all the quality staff we had in Manitoba, all the A licensed coaches, bring smarter people than me into the room to help me out. And we went on to have great success. The provincial teams ended up winning a gold medal at the Western Canada Games. We medalled regularly. at the provincial all-stars, which were Manitoba. We'd not done in the 20 years before. And in my reign there, we had 36 players and staff go on and represent Canada at some level.
Wow.
And a large part of them were boys. So that was great achievements, really a collective effort, and testament to everyone in the province, really, for getting behind trying to put Manitoba on the map and develop facilities and education systems and coach licensing. And the beauty of these jobs, and I'll talk about my national team and Valour later on, is you get opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have got in England. You know what I mean? Like, we're starting something new. There's so much established programs in England and the UK and even in the US now, that to build something new or to have an opportunity to really go in and make an impact and develop a program and have the time to do it, right? Because, it's like in England, 6 results in and you haven't got any opportunity, you're out the door and it's a revolving door. Mm-hmm. So I think I really appreciated that opportunity to cut my teeth in Canada and also on the international stage with the national teams after a couple of years.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it. And I like the way of you saying, bring smart people to the room, because we had an episode just last week with Mehran Roshan, and he said, if you're the smartest in the room, get out of the room. So I think it's a good way to put it. But yeah, as you were saying, provincial, let's jump from provincial to national. I just want to get your opinion on something. So, and this was a discussion we had with Coach Maria Soccer. I'm not sure if you're aware of her. She's a coaching brand in Canada. And we asked her about, Canadian youth football, things like this. And as you said, the UK, the US, very developed in terms of where they are in understanding coaching and playing on a very high level, all the way down to kind of your Sunday league. But what's missing in Canadian soccer is, she said, a DNA. The FA bring out, football. They have the English. What makes an English footballer? That English DNA. The US, they have the same. Canada doesn't have that. Do you think that is something that is missing? And also, if you were to bring in, some sort of DNA, could you identify what that is for Canadian football?
So we do have a DNA. I actually worked on it at the same time as the English Football Association was working on it. It was quite funny, really, because my brother-in-law was in England, coaching in England, and I was coaching in Canada with the national teams, and we've come across each other a couple of times in competition now. But Tony Fonseca was a technical director who brought me on and gave me an opportunity after we went to the Under-17 World Cup in Mexico, and we tied England. Our goalie, Keelan Roberts, scored a famous goal and lobbed it over Jordan Pickford on a slippy surface, and we come away with a 2-2 draw, funnily enough. But we started building the Canadian DNA then, and we knew at the time the difference was going to be the infrastructure and also the ability and the finances to roll that out fully and properly. And we said eventually probably the USA and other countries will take some of the work we've done and run with it, whereas we get bogged down in that in Canada. And that's evolved over the years. But what I can tell you what we did and where I think there's been benefit ever since, and Alex will know this, but on the female side, we've been there or thereabouts. Our numbers are competitive. The 2012 London Olympics was a great breakthrough because that is the recognition on an international stage. But before that, with Cara Lang and Christine Sinclair and all them way back in like early 2000s, we got 4th in the under-19s, and that sort of era of player we knew was coming through. And on the male side, we didn't have anything. And if you can imagine, when I was with the national team there, TFC was only just beginning. Vancouver Whitecaps wasn't in the MLS, it was in the A-League. The same with Montreal Impact. So they're in these American leagues, but it's borderline semi-professional, fully professional because of the wages and everything else. And if you haven't got the horses, you haven't got the players in the environments, you're not going to win the race, right? So what we decided at the national team level is we're going to try and pick them younger, give them more experiences, give them more tournament expertise. And I never, ever parked the bus. I wasn't Jose Mourinho. We'd go into games and we'd always try and win them. And we said, you know what? It might work, it might not. But we're going to live or die by this and say, why can't we compete? It was my philosophy for Manitoba, really. Why can't we compete? Still 11v11. just because Ontario has 500,000 players and we only have 15,000, it doesn't matter. You can't play 500,000 versus 15,000.
It's all about cream of the crop,
right? You got to develop them. You got to challenge them. You got to expose them, and I think you've got to live by it to say, you know what, it's not going to be rosy. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but we'll make mistakes together. So we did that with the DNA, and luckily enough, we've had players. I can go through the cycle, but Samuel Piet was that first cycle that I was involved in at the national team. He's obviously captain at Club de Foot now, Montreal, good old Club Foot, Montreal. And Jordan Hamilton, Kyle Larin, Alphonso Davis, Jonathan David, all of these guys that I've had the pleasure to work through. But we exposed them, Baloo Tableau. We exposed them at early ages. I gave Alphonso his debut for Canada in a competitive game in England, Easter Sunday 2014. He was, 2016, it would have been 15 years old. Right,
he's so quick. He's so
and I played him as a central midfielder as a 15-year-old. Blue Tableau alongside him. Harry Winks was in that team against us. Marcus Rashford made his debut. Only debut he didn't score. So if you expose them and you believe in them and you challenge them, and look, I'm not taking by any means credit for Alphonso Davies and his meteoric rise, or Baloo or any of these guys. I was just privileged to be a guardian of a team for them. But that was what we said. There was our DNA. We're not just hard-working. And, Alex, how many times have we been labelled with this over the years? Same on the female side. Oh, they're tough, they're battle, they're resilient, all of these. We've seen it now, and John's continued that and on the female side and on the male side, and we're developing players like your Jessie Flemings, your Janine Beckies, your Jordan Heitemers, creative, technical players. And if you give them the platform and you believe in it, then eventually it will reap its benefits. And we hope that 2022 and then 2026, that early work and the now increased infrastructure, the Canadian Premier League for sure is a huge part of that. More players in better environments year round, or as long as a year as we get here, will help us be competitive on that national stage.
Yeah, do you see everything between now and 2026, even Qatar, as a building block to that big goal of trying to actually really, really compete at 2026 when you've got all these youth kind of hitting their prime or reaching their kind of potential?
Yes, for sure. And even if we get, like you say, if we get out to Qatar and we're in that competition, you don't know. This is the hardest thing to tell anybody. I didn't know anything about CONCACAF when I was coming over. English guy, we'd throw scorn on your Hondurases and your Panamas in England because, we're from Europe. You know what we're like. We're arrogant. We invented the game. You don't realise how good the football is here. You've heard of Mexico and the World Cup, but you don't realise how talented those players are and the environments till you go into it, how competitive it is. It's the same. Until we get to a men's World Cup, these guys won't know what it's like to compete in that competition at that level. And that's what we need. That's why the females, the youth World Cups were so important that they qualified for regularly. That gave them the chance to be medalists at the Olympics. So that's what we need. We need these staging posts, be better in Gold Cups. The new format is better because there's more competitive games year round. But if we can get to Qatar, I'm not expecting us to do anything there other than learn to get ready for 2026.
Battle tested, being ready, being prepared. I think that's a good point. Like, just to be there, Qatar, it doesn't matter what happens while you're there, but just the experience of being on that world stage, but also everything leading up to the World Cup, getting all the way through all the qualifying stages to then get there. It's just that experience of them going and appreciating what the process is, so that when you go there in 2026, and yes, you're a host country, so you're able to kind of walk straight in, you appreciate, the difficulty it takes just to get there. That would make them appreciate it more, come the time, hopefully, summer 2026.
No, spot on. And until you've been there and you played these games and the glare of the spotlight, even, you can think you've done anything in football and then you go to a World Cup, even the youth ones, and we played Rwanda, Uruguay, England. The following World Cup, we played Austria, Iran, Argentina. We ended up tying 4 games in a row back-to-back World Cups was amazing for a Canadian male side. Like I say, and that was Piet's group, and then going into Jordan Hamilton's age group, and Marco Bustos, Kian Throws, all of those guys coming through. You don't know until you're there, and then you realise what a small cog you are in this great big world of football that we love.
So Morgan talked about it a little bit, and going back to the DNA piece, and I know you mentioned something that I found very interesting was your competitive advantage, you could say, in terms of other provinces. Having majority of the population in around Winnipeg, that's a massive, obviously, benefit, because I find that we do have a lot of players in this country. The leagues are very, obviously, there's not consistency around all the different competitions. I mean, I know in Ontario we have OPDL, which is on the Ontario soccer side, but we also have the academies and whatnot doing their own thing. I think what we lacked is a little bit of collective understanding towards one goal. And I remember maybe 2 years ago when John Herdman was announced the head coach of the men's program, listening to him in London when we had all the Ontario coaches come in for a conference, and the way he was able to get us all, because a lot of coaches, I mean, I think this is everywhere. They there's a lot of, we don't always see eye to eye, let's put it that way. And there's always people that think they know the best. And that's the way it is. But the way he was able to get everyone behind him and realize what the collective goal is, because why people are into coaching is typically not simply to win and be the best as a coach. It's really to improve players and hopefully see our national team one day actually be competitive at a World Cup. And I remember since that day, I thought, good things will happen. I mean, to get to Qatar, that's a different story. There's a lot more work to be done. I mean, we're beating Cayman Islands, we're smashing them, but there's more tests coming up. Let's put it that way. But talk a little bit about John Herdman's work, because from my perspective and someone who's obviously not seeing it firsthand, he's really captivating the country together and pushing forward in one direction, which is obviously for the greater good of the country.
Yeah, lot to unpack in that. Like you say, getting people to leave their ego at the door and do what's best for the players is not easy, and it's become an industry, right? So you selling a dream to Europe or colleges and having connections versus the next group down the street, male and female. It's tough to get people to say, we just want to be servants of the game and do what's best for Canadian soccer and see a bigger picture, and then realize that that's going to benefit all of us. And you're not going to get buy-in. You're not going to get everybody's buy-in. There's people that are in it in all parts of the world, unfortunately, for themselves. And hopefully they get found out, or, and then they bop around from club to club or district to district. And the hardest thing for the national team coaches is you have to pick players in the best environments. And you may have talented players that are in academies or in obscure places, like we say in Winnipeg, there's lots of talented footballers, male and female. But unless they're in those competitive environments 4 days a week, true development, we're just scratching the surface, and we won't be competitive on that national stage. We used to get told off for picking players from MLS clubs, but they're in a professional environment every day. They might get to go and train with the first team, who we've got males and females with the NWSL and those incarnations, that it's their job. They have to pay their mortgage by performing every single day. You need to challenge. That's what you get in England. You're in that environment early, and you're playing against men or women every day who it's their job. And that's what the young Canadian player doesn't have enough of. And you have to choose from those environments, or you get exposed, right? And it's got better. And like you say, there's more standards-based leagues, all of that, which is culminating at the right time now with the professional leagues. Desperate for a women's one, Alex, right? We desperately need that too. Oh. How there's not a professional women's league in any sport in a country like Canada, G7 country, is a disgrace, right? It's a disgrace, right? So we got to get there too. But then John, what he is a master at is he's methodical. He knows how to talk to sponsors, the boardroom. He knows how to strategically plan and lay out a roadmap, and his attention to detail is incredible. And then he's a great communicator and motivator and leader. So he's the perfect guy to bring all of these factors together, where you need without funding, you can have whatever programs you like. If you don't get together on a regular basis, there's no chemistry, there's no competition, you've got no chance. That's why Mexico and the US are ahead of us, no doubt about that. But he's working on that. He's bringing it together. He's bringing governments together. He's had success on the female side. And nobody wants to be embarrassed on their own turf. And that's where we got the advantage of 2026. It's a spotlight. It's something to work towards. And we've got to do the right things now to make sure. Because the economic impact and the football impact, if we are at least competitive, which we should be with the talent that we have, is going to be a sea change for football in this country. So it's exciting times. It's great to be a part of it. It is a challenge, like you say. Don't underestimate the challenge of working in a country this big. We are 13 different countries. We are a continent.
Yes.
Honestly, it's so sparsely spread out, the player populations, and there is so underserviced at so many areas. Community centres, mini kickers, they're not connected to the system. That pathway has to continue to build, the coach education, all of those factors. And that's the beauty, like I said earlier. You've got a chance to build something in this country, and we got a roadmap, but you've got to put your ego aside. You've got to serve the game. Let's do this for the players and the future generations. You know, what's that old Chinese saying about where you plant a tree in your garden, but it's your grandkids that are going to eat the fruit from it, something like that? I probably butchered that, and I'm not a fortune cookie.
I understood that clearly, so you're good.
We've got to plant the seeds now, regardless of our own egos and stats and records, and say we did something that helped lead to the future of the game in this country.
And as you said, remove the barriers to entry. 100%. The community, anyone, anywhere in the country should be able to have access and gain access if they're good enough. It should come down to purely talent and willingness, and nothing else. Alex, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, it was from earlier, but I'm going to try and tie it into stuff we've been talking about since. But a couple, so a couple two different points. Kind of one thing I was, about the whole John Herdman and creating a DNA for players in Canada and establishing who we want to be as soccer players, as footballers. And I think that the comment you made about us being resilient and tough and being willing to win a tackle and get in your face, and that was kind of the thing we were known for. And that was a culture that was built, like, we need to be tough and gritty on the field. And that was just an expectation. And I think that people like John Herdman and then everyone underneath him have started to make the right moves in going in and establishing where do we need to improve, like finding our weak points, finding what our weaknesses are in the international game. And that was our ability to be creative and to be dynamic up top and to have an attacking minded type team. And he's, he made changes like taking an Ashley Lawrence out of her midfield position and bringing her into the back line, into that fullback role, and establishing and showing to everyone, in the country that we're going to be an attacking team. Like, we want to score goals. And that's trickled down to people below, and it started to show people that we need to be more creative. And a lot of the interviews I do with players, female players, they said that their biggest setback when they're trying to get noticed is their ability to be creative. And they'd always have to go and outsource, like one-on-one coaching or finding some kind of technical skills coach on the side to help them with that in their game, because it was lacking when they were younger. And so talking about how exciting it is that there's more focus on that area. So I think that, like, we're seeing the emphasis on being more creative, and the game is part of the new Canadian DNA. I think, at least from what I'm seeing at the grassroots youth level, the focus on just being able to manipulate the ball and be confident with the ball is such a change from when I was training and going through the youth programs. So I think that Canada needs time. Like, we haven't had enough time to break the stereotype that has been created for us, and I think it's happening, but it doesn't just change overnight. So that's, I think, a big thing. Yeah. And then my other thing was in terms of creating, like, people wanting to stay here and creating a pathway and having a roadmap and all that kind of stuff, and having people so divided in the country. I think a major problem, at least on the female side, is that we still look at getting a Division I scholarship to the States as, like, the pinnacle of the female career. And that's a problem, because you're automatically, from age 6, 7, 8, whenever it happens for you, you're automatically, as like a female soccer player, you know that in order to reach your full potential, you have to leave the country. That's what's kind of ingrained into people's minds. And it's slowly starting to change. And like you said, like in 2012, that was an earth-shattering moment. Like, our country can compete at a national level. Like, that changed people's views, females for sure, on what's possible in this country. But up until that point, it was, if you want to be the best, you have to go to the States and get a D1 scholarship. And I think until there's more put into the youth sports program, and there's, we get a professional league in Canada, the national team is still going to have that struggle of people wanting to push forward in the country, because you have so many coaches, like you said, that you have so many coaches, like you said, that their focus, and I think, Jovan, you brought this up too, their focus is to just be that coach that, oh, I have these connections in the States, and they bring all these players to them, and they're like, don't worry, I'm going to get you connected, we're going to get you that scholarship. And so you have all of these Canadian coaches that are working against the program and encouraging all these people to leave. And I was one of those players that left because I thought that was the best option for me, because I didn't think there was good enough options for me in my own country.
No, you're spot on. You're spot on. Like you say, it takes time to break down that. Look, and there's nothing wrong with being tough and resilient and everything else, but it can't be the only thing you're good at, right? The Invincibles. We were as tough as anybody back in the glory days when we used to drink out of these cups with pride. We could kill a team with our physical presence and the skill set, but like you say, to really make that mark and the way the game is going,
a lot of draws in that season.
Doesn't matter, mate. The title at the end of it came to North London N5, mate. That's all we're talking about. So, happy days. But no, you're spot on, Alex. We have to break down those, and it does take time. And like you say, the male game was colonised by the States and MLS, and we didn't even count as domestics in the MLS. We have to get opportunities for ladies in this league. We have to get youth sports programs, more opportunities to stay at home. Desiree Scott's a great example. She was told she'd have to go to the States. Didn't want to go. She's close to her mum, single mum looking after her, so she didn't want to be away from home. Then she was told she had to go to Vancouver and Vancouver Whitecaps, and we're still doing that too much. We're still sending people to 1 or 2 professional environments, and that's where CPL is huge for us, because now professional team on your doorstep. See and watch local players, people who've been in your league, come through your pathway, play professionally. And if we can get that on the female side, it'll bring about, instead of sending them all over the world, and PSG and Lyon and Lille and all of these other places and the English Premier League, we need to keep as many of them as we can here, and that will benefit and grow our domestic game. But we're playing catch up.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess kind of before we let you go, Rob, this has been a great discussion, but at the end of the day, you are a current coach in the CPL for Valour. So talk about how, just briefly, kind of how that's been the past couple of seasons. Don't know if you can call last season a real season. But yeah, just where you guys have come so far, but also, tied into that, what's the vision for the future once, we do get going, once they get Doug Ford out of office?
He's in office in every province. Palace area. They're all Boris Johnsons. We need more Linda Ardens, don't we? Come on, let's get the females in power. They're the only ones who do a good job. So
honestly,
look, great privilege. Like I say, I've been in this province now 15 years as a coach and hopefully somewhat of a leader in the soccer community, and wore many hats, and that's why I left the national team program. Really, I couldn't see anybody else walking out a team in Winnipeg. I needed to be that coach. I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to build something. I know the values of the Manitoba people, and what sports teams mean to us here in Winnipeg, and having such a population. Although we're close to 1 million people, like we're only 1 degree of Kevin Bacon, as they say, 1 degree of separation, right? You're all one call away from the next person. So it's a great community like that. And to have the chance to build something, again, a new team in a new league, when are you going to get that opportunity again in your lifetime, right? And especially without changing your postcode. So it's been a privilege. It's hard work. Cavalry Forge had some infrastructure with academies underneath them, some development. I was lucky in that I knew the Canadian young players, but bringing them to Manitoba is not, the most popular destination compared to a Halifax or a Victoria. And
gets a wee bit chilly, I hear.
Yeah, sometimes it's lovely in the summer. It gets a bad rep, doesn't it, Alex? But it's a beautiful place, and I say the people, I wouldn't change postcodes for anyone really. But yeah, you know what? The league is growing. There's over 22 cities, I think the commissioner has said on record before, that are interested in bringing a team to the Canadian Premier League. They just need to develop the infrastructure. Saskatchewan was the last one in Saskatoon there, which would be great for us here. We know lower mainland BC, teams in Quebec, teams in the Maritimes and the Atlantic there are all interested. Lots of cities.
Get some promotion and relegation in there. That'll be fascinating. You know what I mean? Bit of promotion, relegation, get a little relegation playoffs going sort of thing. I think it would be awesome.
It would be. I've got to tell you, though, they've invested enormous amounts of money, so you can see why it's not there. Just the franchise fee alone, and I can't remember the economic impact, but I think teams just to get off and running spent over $26 million just to get in and get in a position, and then you add in the infrastructure and now the support, and it's going to grow. Look, we've got small technical staffs. There's not full departments. We're very much at our infancy, but there's a willingness between the owners, great people working across the board. The fans are bought into it. It's exciting times, and it's going to get better and better. And the fact that they even managed to have an Island Games when more established leagues couldn't get going last year was amazing. So we got to build on that momentum. Who knows what this year's going to hold? No one's got a crystal ball. But there will be a league of some form, maybe a bubble, maybe leagues, maybe home games in the stands, maybe a combination of all of those. But there's a willingness by the people putting in the money and the effort behind the scenes to get it up and running. And it's a privilege to be a part of, and long overdue. And I think we're going to look back, and hopefully, what my aim for the city here and the province is that I leave something better than I found it. And we have a team here for 100 years, and they can look back and say, you know what, the values we espoused and the principles and what we meant to our community, we laid a good foundation for someone to go on and be more successful and to do, great things for Winnipeg and Manitoba in the future.
Wow, true servant of the game, and someone who's seen it in a lot of different roles. And I think right now what you're doing with Valour, in a league in a time where it's there's so much in question. I think what you're doing is amazing, providing those opportunities for players you talked about that we sometimes are missing, the ability to give a Canadian debut at 15, 16 years old now, not in England, but now in our own league is amazing. So I think this is obviously just the start and something we're going to see, your legacy obviously as a head coach of one of the teams, but obviously for the country in the future. Rob Gale, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously we had it's another great conversation. That's how I look at it, in a discussion where we were able to learn a lot from you and hopefully, introduce our 27 listeners in Malaysia, is it? About the Canadian Premier League. So maybe
Valour, start a Valour Malaysia fan club.
Imagine
Malaysia. And
Alex,
Zambia.
start calling your cousins up, mate. Call your cousins.
I will.
Awesome. So this has been another episode of the Footy Forum, a CPL week special. Rob, again, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Rob's the top guy. We need more people in the world like Rob. You shoot him a message, he goes, no problem, can't wait, looking forward to it. So straightforward. So big up yourself, Rob. And and we'd love to get you on again in the future. Hopefully whenever this season starts and then finishes, we'd love to chat to you more about, how the season went, as the CPL continues to grow.
Great,
another episode of the Footy Forum. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Wait, I see you. Don't go yet. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you follow us on Instagram at TFF Media and TikTok at the Footy Forum to ensure you're part of the most inclusive football community out there. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Until next time, take care.